Hey, deserving listeners, Jorge and Anfisa, let's watch.
How much do you want?
10,000 per month?
Don't make me laugh.
Then I guess we're not getting
Be
married.
reasonable. Be reasonable.
I am reasonable.
All right, so I don't know if she's joking. I hope she is, but she wants an allowance. Okay, well, there's a number of things to say. One is that she says she wants to be a model because she wants people to recognize her on the street. I don't know if I showed that clip, but that's what she said. And he said he didn't want her to work. And I think maybe this is in response to that. She's saying, okay, fine, if you don't want me to work, then you have to give me a bunch of money. So maybe, or she's angry that he's trying to dominate that because, you know, she's a grown woman. She can work if she wants to. But but then you think about the way she phrased that as I want to be a model because I want to be famous and I want people to recognize me on the street, take a picture with me on the street, I think she said. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, people can have their career goals, but it's just an unusual one, at least phrased in that way. And then now she's saying, I want 10,000 a month, and he's saying, you know, that's not reasonable. Now, maybe it is reasonable given his income, but maybe it isn't. We're also learning that he's saying that he's staying in a number of hotels because his house was robbed, I think he said, and he's staying in hotels. So on one hand, you're like, huh, well, that's interesting. And certainly that would be pretty expensive to stay in hotels. But anyway, but that could happen if someone breaks into your house, as I have in my life. It can be very disconcerting later. You want to feel like you're safe in your own house, right? And even if someone broke in while you weren't home, it just feels like someone can just break into my house at any time. It's really frightening. And maybe for him that was traumatic. I don't know.
I didn't say 50,000 or 100,000 or 10,000.
Anfisa comes off as a little bit too focused on money. I'm hoping she'll grow out of that phase once we get married.
Uh-oh. So he is correctly identifying that she is very focused on money. Whether she's too focused on money or not is up to you to make that call. But according to him, he's saying she's too focused on money, which I think he has a lot of data to support that, even on what we've seen. He's obviously experienced her a lot more than we've seen of it. And he is saying, I hope to get her to grow out of that when we get married. Again, there's that infantization, the childization of her, that she's a child. She'll grow out of that phase, essentially. And also the childish nature of asking daddy for money and demanding things and having him say, sorry, I can't afford that, instead of two adults talking about a budget.
She actually sent me an email saying I canceled your flight. Wow.
I was angry with George and I even locked his phone because he didn't want to buy me the purse that I want. I don't like when I don't get my way with things.
All right, so we're finally hearing from Anfisa why she says she locked his phone, but she didn't lock it. She wiped it. She factory reset his phone. And she also locked him out of his email address and canceled his flight. And I think, anyway, so she did that. And according to him, it was because he didn't buy her a purse. And now we're hearing from her that is true. And she says, I don't like when I don't get my way with things. Okay. So this plays into the hypothesis that I had about these two, where they see the world through a dominant, inferior lens. At all times, they are assessing, am I dominant or inferior? And always trying to establish dominance. And he establishes dominance over her in a variety of ways, and she establishes dominance over him, and I would say to a greater degree anyway, in terms of what we've seen on the show. So they both seem to be power playing with each other, but in different, she lets him or doesn't care about him establishing power with money and cars and home and income and job. And he doesn't mind her establishing power over things like, you will give me money, I will withhold affection from you. There's also a cultural difference. I've reacted to enough of this show that people will write in and talk about people in Russia being less less, not always, of course, but not as obvious regarding one's affection. And, like what some Russian people will say is, Americans will, not every American, but mainstream Americans will say, I love you, and they'll smile, and there's a lot of politeness. And people in Russia, they feel like they don't need to do that. Like, actions speak louder than words. And it's kind of this, Russians might look at Americans and see there's this constant smiling and how are you doing and all this fakery. Like, just be yourself. Stop constantly acting. Other Russians will email and say, actually, when I came to the United States, I liked it. I liked the politeness. I liked the courteousness. It made me feel like I was more welcome than even in my home country of Russia. So there's multiple different reactions. So I don't know if we're seeing that, because there's a certain blankness to the way that she reacts.
Did you even decide to fight with me over that?
Because I wanted the purse.
A bag is gonna sit in the closet.
So
A bag is
it's gonna make me happy.
And I understand that, but they're expensive. Really expensive.
Your car is expensive too.
At least they're having a conversation about it instead of her locking him out of, or factory resetting his phone. And he's saying, look, this purse is just going to sit in a closet. And she's saying, well, it makes me happy. And then he's like, well, it's expensive. And then she says, well, your car is expensive too. And he doesn't really have a comeback to that, because he's like, yeah, I probably overspent on a car that can't fit luggage in it when two people are sitting in the car. So, I mean, now, what needs to happen in couples is mutual respect, mutual budgeting. How are we going to allocate money? So at least this conversation is in a more functional direction than their previous.
I changed my mind.
Why did you change your mind?
Because I don't have to stay here. I can go back to Russia if I don't want something. I thought that I could come and see how things are here.
So
and
this
if
is your
anything, I can go back.
vacation.
Yeah, I'm on vacation.
Okay, so I think for him, he's thinking this is a precursor to engagement and marriage. And for her, she's communicating, I'm just seeing how things are, which is totally rational for anyone to do in that situation. To just say, yeah, I'm going to get married. I'm going to move to a totally different culture and country and away from all my family and friends, and without any kind of trial period. So, I think that's rational. But if you're trying to preserve a relationship, how do you communicate that? There's so many other ways to say that, of just like, honey, I love you. I definitely want to get married, but I'm still wondering what it's going to be like when I'm here. So I'm still just, it's overwhelming to think about. So I just need some time to adjust to that.
That answer really kind of made me think a little bit more. I don't know if she's really serious. What do you think about us? Like, do you not take us seriously, or what? Like,
Do you not take us seriously?
He is asking a question. There's other ways to ask it that are less accusatory, but it was a good, relevant question. What do you think of us? I wish you just would have stopped there. Then he says, do you take us seriously? There's kind of an accusation there. And then she, instead of responding by saying, yes, I do take us seriously and I do want to be with you, she answers with another accusational question. Do you take it seriously? I'm here on a visa, and let's see what she says.
I'm here on Fiancé visa.
Yeah.
You didn't even propose to me. Where's
I
my ring?
understand. I mean, obviously there's 90.
So she's saying, do you take it seriously? Because you haven't even proposed yet. I think this is literally the first day that they landed. But that's kind of a weird paradox, right? She's like, well, I'm just here on vacation, so whatever. And then he's like, wait, so are you here because in his head, he's like, I was going to propose to you, but if you're not taking this seriously, then maybe I shouldn't propose to you. And then in a catch-22 situation, she's like, well, I'll take it seriously when you ask me to marry you. It's like, well, can't we both just take it seriously and both head towards marriage? And again, she's focused on the ring. Like, I want the ring. So God knows how much money he's going to have to spend on that.
Is she doing it for love, or is she doing it because she wants to do, her modeling career? I just I know that you have posted pictures on Facebook, and as a family, we talk and we're like, okay, is she using my brother? I don't know. That's the questions that come out of our...
As usual, the American family member is accusing the non-American of being insincere and trying to use their family member for a green card and money when they don't have any evidence of that. I understand the concern, I suppose, but to voice that to the person when you meet them at first without any data to back it up just proves that you're prejudiced and you are biased, and that says more about you than it does about Anfisa. So she's asking, are you going to do that? And she says, there's pictures on Facebook that are not appropriate for children. It's like, yeah, I'm guessing a lot of people, and plus the pictures aren't, I'm sure there are many parents that would say they wouldn't mind their kids happening across a photo like that. I don't know. Anyway, so she's saying, I've seen pictures of you online that are not for family. We've been talking and we wonder. So, I just think, whenever we run into this scene, I always think that a fair way of saying it would be, hey, I don't want to accuse you of anything, and I'm sure you're a great person. I don't know you, but I just have to say I have this worry. Maybe I'm paranoid. I don't want to accuse you of anything, because the accusation is pretty severe, right? That essentially they're a criminal con artist. I mean, that's what you're accusing someone of, that they would con someone into believing that they're in love when they're not, just to try to extract money. That's what a con artist does. Tinder swindler, that kind of thing. So that's a pretty big accusation. And I think that people should be careful about making those accusations. Now, of course, Americans, white Americans in particular, can be pretty racist, even towards Russians. I don't know if that's what's happening right here, but I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't a factor, right? Because if she were from England or something, would it be a different calculation or a different bias? I don't know. But anyway, having said all that, there are data that Anfisa is in it just for the money, just because of how severe she... Now, I didn't show the scenes where she was saying they have chemistry and they have a lot of physical affection. So at least they appear to have a romantic connection. We can think of other couples like Danielle and Muhammad where we didn't really see any of that on camera. Could it have existed? Yeah, but it's hard to fake that. You could fake it. Anyway, we always run into this scene and I'm always just like, why would you ask that? Hey, deserving listeners, as y'all know, I am constantly recommending that people go to therapy. We all need therapy from time to time. Well, one of the options available that is definitely worth checking out is BetterHelp. If you're looking for a therapist, I would give it a try by going to betterhelp.com/Kirk. Make sure you use the promo code Kirk because you get 10% off your first month, and it really helps us out. As you watch these videos, I know many of you have been motivated to find your own therapist, which is great because you deserve it. And I know also that it can be hard to find a good fit, find the right one for you. Well, one of the options available in terms of your shopping is to go to betterhelp.com/Kirk. I've been told you can start communicating with your therapist in under 24 hours. You can message your counselor at any time. Plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions. I've also been told that it's often less expensive than in-person therapy, and you should know that this service is available to clients worldwide. So go to betterhelp.com/Kirk to get 10% off your first month today.
Our mouths. So,
I understand your concerns, and I want to get to know you and other sisters and George's parents too, to make them love me like George does.
Okay, great response. No defensiveness, no anger, just, which would be justified, just, well, I understand your concerns and I want to get to know you better and I want you to fall in love with me like the way George does. So, great response.
A little bit when she was asking about modeling and everything like that.
You don't like the questions?
I think Lourdes now knows more about our relationship than my grandma or my mom, because I don't just, tell everything.
Okay, I don't know if I show this clip, but she's saying Russian people don't talk about their personal things with people. I don't know if that's exactly true, but that's what she's saying. At least she's saying, I think, I don't talk about personal things with people that I'm not really close with. And now she's saying that his sister now knows more about their relationship than her family members do, which I think to even Russian people, that would be different. She's going to the United States to potentially become engaged, get married, maybe to live for permanently. And I think what she's saying is that her family, she hasn't told her family that. What does that say? I don't know, but it's a data point, perhaps indicating distance.
For me to get an apartment, because every apartment asks if I've been convicted of a felony. And I have a criminal background.
All right, so they're staying in a hotel and she doesn't want to do that anymore. He said earlier, if I remember right, they're in a hotel because his house was broken into. And now he's saying maybe in addition or in lieu of that, instead of that, the reason why they're not in an apartment or a house is because they always ask for a background check. And he has, what he says, a criminal background. I'm guessing he has a felony on his record. And I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a real estate person. That sounds surprising to me that places could discriminate against you because you have a felony in your background, especially if you could provide an explanation. I've actually, a friend of mine who's a lawyer has a felony on his record, and he has a job with the government actually. And anyway, so I don't know, maybe it is a problem in California. Maybe it is hard to get an apartment or house. And I will say that there are felonies that we might judge people for, like murder, this sort of thing. But there are a lot of felonies where, you did something wrong, but it's not something that we would say should incur a lot of judgment from a partner. Let's see what happens.
What background?
Well, I told you that I work in the medical marijuana industry. When I started, it wasn't as legal.
Essentially, he was a drug dealer. But on the other hand, you would say, well, marijuana eventually became legalized, and so you could argue that he was just ahead of the curve in that way. In the beginning of my career, I worked with a lot of clients who were drug dealers, different tiers actually. There were the kind of low tier drug dealer who was just scraping by, selling, little bags of weed or cocaine or something, pills, and maybe they're a high school student, this kind of thing. And then there were clients who were, full-blown kingpins on some level, where they had distributors and employees, and again, during a time when marijuana was illegal. The hope is that they can communicate about it. I don't have high hopes given what I've seen thus far, but maybe their love, because I think they have genuine affection for each other, might carry the day. Let's see what happens.
Tell me before. Who knows what else he has to hide?
And I got in trouble. I went to jail for a few days, but it's really not a violent crime or anything like that.
Right. Okay. So he's explaining it to her. And we have a tremendous amount of stigma around criminal charges. And I feel bad for people that have to go through this. We tend to lump all crimes into the same area, which of course is ridiculous. Like I was saying earlier, there's a big difference between someone bumps into you at a bar and you shoot them in the head and selling some medical marijuana to people who are having trouble sleeping and having trouble with appetite. You know, one is obviously illegal, immoral, one of the worst things you could do as a human being. And the other one is like, why is that illegal? Right? You know, when we call someone a felon or a criminal or an ex-convict, we just sort of say, you are a degenerate. We dehumanize you. We categorize you over here. You don't deserve any of the rights that we have. And we're not going to give you a job, a home, respect, and all that kind of stuff. Some behaviors, we could say, well, you know, it's understandable to be wary of someone that murdered someone in a bar because they bumped into them. But selling marijuana, he was in that business, right? So it sounds like maybe he was doing some legal things, but also some illegal things. Probably a sting operation, I'm guessing. I don't know.
Changed, and there's permits to allow for medical marijuana to be cultivated. I just didn't want to
Wow,
worry you.
we've been dating for a year and you never told me that you're a criminal?
A criminal, right? I get on some level where she's coming from, and I don't know if I show this clip, but she was saying, well, if he didn't tell me about this, what else has he not told me about? And absolutely. And that's always a concern. And that there's always a tension between risking that with someone and just telling them everything about you on the first date, right? It's like, there's this thing about me that I'm not proud of. At what point do I tell my partner that? And how long? I want to wait as long as I can, but I also don't want to risk them thinking that I'm withholding other kinds of things from them. So, you know, it's normal to have that concern. Let's see how they work it out, though.
Like, I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how to tell you.
Don't tell
Like,
me that now.
Yeah. So let me just model what could be said in this moment. She could say, well, I'm glad you told me. I'm a little concerned about what else you haven't told me about, because I didn't realize that you would have such a significant secret from me. But I understand why you didn't tell me, and I want to tell you I don't judge you for that. I mean, you were just selling marijuana. Who cares? I want to know a little bit more detail about this, if you don't mind. But yeah, I mean, it's legalized now, and so, or, you know, what else were you doing back then? Like, what led you to sell drugs at 21? Like, why were you, you know, just getting some background. And then from his standpoint, he could say like, well, I'm really sorry I didn't tell you, and I realize how shocking this must be for you, and I hope you don't judge me, because I'm terrified that you're going to judge me and you're going to leave me, or you're going to think I'm some sort of degenerate. And to tell you the truth, you know, for the last number of years, I've been secretive about this because I feel like people judge me for it when they don't really know the circumstances, you know, that led me down that road. And I will admit that I did wrong things. I knew I was breaking the law. But I don't know, I was just selling weed to college kids who were smoking weed on the weekends. Like I guess I didn't really see any problem with it. I don't know. Or I was selling weed to people who were going through cancer treatment and needed medical marijuana and they couldn't get it from the dispensary. You know, some just elaboration. That's always what I'm wanting on these shows. It's like, elaborate. But when you don't have the modeling, you know, you don't have someone that's telling you how to voice your heart, and you're insecure, you will either get defensive or attack, which is what we're seeing.
I didn't think you would ever find out.
Wait, so he says, the reason why I didn't want to tell you is because I didn't think you would ever find out. the way his demeanor didn't seem like he was going to say something. I thought he was going to say, I didn't tell you because I thought you were going to judge me. I didn't tell you because I didn't, like, yikes, right? Like, imagine your partner tells you that. It's like, well, why didn't you tell me this before? Well, I feel like I have to tell you now because it was going to be found out because I can't get an apartment. I was never going to tell you. Now, this raises a larger question. Is it okay at times to not tell your partner things? Yeah, maybe, within reason. So I don't think this is one of them, though.
When this was all happening, obviously I want to give you everything you want.
90 days is a very short time to find out if you want to get married and spend life together. I need some time to think about what this means.
Just bear with me, please.
All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.